Welcome to Primetime, everybody. This is episode, I believe it's 11. Yes, right there, episode 11. We are doing Buffy Season 2 tier ranking part 1. Next week will be part 2 because there are too many episodes in these seasons because there's 22 episodes. So we're going to do the first 11 episodes, so 1 to 11 tonight. Next week, we're going to do 12 to 22.
Yeah,
All
so
right.
it turns out we're gonna just have a lot more episodes than we thought at first.
Yeah.
But that's not a bad thing.
So again, I'm your host Hunter Chambers. I'm joined by my co-host Chad and Kerri. How's it going, guys?
It's going great.
Good.
Always down to talk Buffy. It is our favorite show of all time. We can just talk about it any old time, but a structured one like this where we can actually like rank them and do tiers and stuff like that, I think is super fun. We had a blast last time.
Yeah.
And so we're going to get to a lot of our, because like the first season, we have a lot of episodes that we like, but like later on we have a lot of seasons that we just adore. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
So on this week's episode, we're gonna be doing a tier ranking for each of the episodes from 1 to 11. So from S, A, B, and C tier, we're going to put each episode in there. Do the same thing for next week, but at the end of next week's episode, we will be ranking all 22 episodes from 22 to number 1 episode of the season. That way, we're not here for 3 hours ranking 22 episodes of a TV show. All right, so same as before. We're each going to go around nominating episode. We can go out of order. We can go any order we want. Tell where each episode is going to go, and then we'll vote on where it should go from S to C. So we will start with Kerri with her first episode from 1 to 11.
Okay. Cool. So I'll start with the first one. When she was bad. I know I'm just gonna be boring and go in order. I thought about not doing in order, but I decided I wanted to anyways. But I think this is a really fantastic episode. It's a great season opener. We see the effects of the end of last season, like what that has really had on Buffy. And not to mention, we get to see, how all our favorite characters have fared over the summer, and get to see them in action a little bit. So I would put this one, I think this is an A tier episode. This is a fantastic episode. I wouldn't say it's the best of the season, but I think this is a very solid episode. I don't know, and it's just one of my favorites to watch.
Yeah, I'll mirror that. I'll say A is the perfect place for this one. It's definitely a great one. We get to see more of like these relationships developing. She comes back, she's kind of a jerk to everybody, but people immediately know that something's wrong. She's not that type of person to just go be, but she is, oh man, she is savage when she was bad.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just one of those things. And then you actually get to see kind of like Xander stand up for everyone, even to Buffy, even someone he likes, and as a friend, more than a friend, stuff like that. But like he actually says, if anything happens to them, I'll kill you, stuff like that. So and it's just a lot of like really great character moments like that where it's hard to watch because you don't want Buffy to be bad, but you understand why she is that way. But yeah, I just think it's really, really great. This was another written and directed by Joss Whedon, and I think those are sometimes the best ones. So yeah, I A for sure. I agree.
All right, so when she was bad is going into the A tier. Yeah, I'd probably put it in the A tier as well. It was a great way of ending the first season and then beginning the season, giving us a great, almost a continuation of like, you kind of get why Buffy is the way she's acting, especially coming off fighting the Master and pretty much dying for, I think they said like 6 or 7 minutes or something like that before being revived. So kind of the mental trauma of that leads into this episode. It's always fun to see kind of how they'll twist certain characters. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Me personally, last season I didn't like what they did with Xander, even though I understood it was the power, corruption that made him do it.
Right.
This one works perfectly because they give us a reason as to why Buffy's acting like this, and it doesn't change her character completely. Like she's going through trauma, but she's still trying to keep people safe around her. So it keeps to the core character, which I love.
Nice. I like that take.
All right, we're on to Chad for his next episode.
All right, well, we'll go with me. I'm going to pick the one that I believe I still like this episode, but I believe it may be the worst of these 11 and maybe also one of the worst of the season if you have to pick a worst. So I'm going to throw it in the C tier. Do you know where I'm going with this one?
I hope you're going where I plan on going.
I'm not sure, but I'm going to go with Reptile Boy on this one. Okay. So yeah, I think this one is definitely a C just because there's really, I don't know. I mean, unless I'm just not remembering the episode enough, this one is just always, it's a really fun, like, monster episode, with like, college stuff. And it's like, be aware of, trying to grow up too quickly, maybe. Don't, parable of don't hang out with people you probably shouldn't be hanging out with, I guess. But it's just, it ends up being, college like frat party gone wrong and people get like in prison. There's a demon, there's some fun stuff in it, but like it's ultimately, there's not much, I feel like, character development or story progression in this one. It's just a monster of the week. And sometimes those can be very, very fun. There's some really fun ones later, but this one I think is sometimes very forgettable in the great scheme of things.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with this one first. I actually like the message of this episode quite a bit. The whole idea of, or at least what I got from it, is almost like an entrapment or like college like sexual assault feel of it, where like these guys are trapping women against their will to, feed to this some sort of like masculinity demon. The whole idea of like, you can't really trust college kids, especially at a party, things like that. The whole cautionary tale of especially people in high school who date, older guys or older women, and the whole, can you really trust what they're up to morally and emotionally? So I wouldn't put this at a C tier. I'd probably put it in a B tier. It's not an A tier to me, but something in the middle for a B tier, I would say.
I think it's
Kerri?
kind of like the I Robot You Jane of this season a little bit, where it's got that cool like cautionary tale, but that's really all it is. But yeah, Kerri.
Yeah, I agree with Hunter. Actually, I'm going to go for B tier with this one. There are things I like about this episode. Like I kind of like the concept that Buffy's really likes Angel, but Angel's not really giving her what she kind of wants out of their relationship. And then Giles is also pushing her really hard, even though, there's not a lot going on, with the home health at the moment. So Buffy's kind of rebelling. This is like her own little personal way of rebelling. There's a boy who's giving her some extra attention and she kind of falls for it. But ultimately she does, save the day. So yeah, I agree. This is like a B tier. I kind of agree. This is a little bit of a forgettable one, a little bit of like, cautionary tale, monster of the week. But I do think it has some like important story elements where like, Giles and Buffy both learn like Buffy has to be responsible, but Giles also can't just push her over the edge.
Push her too hard. Yeah.
I don't remember a lot of that, so thank you.
And again, maybe my take on the episode is completely off warranted, but I got like the cautionary tale of like college kids and things like that from it.
Never.
Don't trust
your
those
take is your
frat
take.
boys. That's a good take.
Yeah, don't trust them frat boys. All right, on to me. I'm gonna go with one of my favorite episodes of the season, actually. See, this is hard because there is only one S tier episode, and I really want it to be this one, but I don't.
I have a couple that I would throw into S tier, like there's two.
Yeah,
I'm gonna say I want this episode to be S tier just because it's my favorite, and that's season 2, episode 6, Halloween. There is so much that happens in this episode. I believe this is the first episode where we see Spike. He's introduced towards the end of this episode.
I think School Heart is the first episode of Spike.
Oh, you might be right. Again, it's been a while. Tough week. But you get more of Spike in this episode, I should say.
Yeah. Well,
plus the whole idea of this costume shop where whatever you choose, you become.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of got vibes of Goosebumps, that the Haunted Mask episode where it gets caught on her face.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is amazing. It's an updated look of not really trusting people, but also just kind of like a really fun, inventive way of being like, let's put Buffy in this situation where, does she, fight people who are still people underneath, including her friends? Or is there an alternate route for her to take in order to stop this evil? So I'm going to go S tier for Halloween, but I would be okay if it's landing in A tier, if I'm being honest here. Guys?
Okay. Yeah, I agree. This is like one that rides the border. And I will say, I think we're fine to stick with one S tier episode for this half of the season. I think for the next half of the season, we will have to expand it because there are definitely like at least 3, maybe more episodes. So incredible. Like it's gonna be a bloodbath if we're trying to like.
It's gonna be a bloodbath.
This one, I think I'm kind of in the same boat as you, Hunter, like the opposite way. I would be perfectly happy with this in S tier, but I think I personally would go A tier.
Okay.
Because there are a couple episodes in this season I like a little bit more. But that said, I think this is definitely, especially this first half of the season, this is definitely one of the best episodes.
Mm-hmm.
It is a classic Buffy episode, and you get the highlight of Spike, who is truly a delight. And
yes,
I love that we get to see our characters just totally different from who they normally are. We get to see Buffy as this like, this woman,
this princess.
This princess who doesn't fight at all, who also doesn't know anything about modern day technology. We get to see Xander as this like really self-assured, confident soldier. And then I love Willow's arc in this episode where she's just like, forced to kind of go outside of her comfort zone.
I'm on the same boat with Kerri, because when I was talking about the couple episodes I would put in S tier, this is actually one of them, because I think this is one of the best of the season and the series. You'll see a common theme later on too, where Halloween episodes have some fun things in them like this, and this is the first one, and it's amazing. I love that everybody has to take, because the ones that buy from Ethan's shop, which you get introduced to Ethan, which leads you more into like Giles
later episodes,
kind of backstory and stuff like that. And you find out that there's more to Giles than actually meets the eye, especially when he sees Ethan or somebody from his past that he does not like. And it's really interesting to see. And then, so when they buy the costumes from there, they take the form of whatever they're wearing. It is fun to see Willow take charge. She's the one that's she's just a ghost of her former self. She still knows everything that she knows, but everybody else's personalities are a little different. It's fun to see Xander be that soldier guy. And then you talk about like, him being a different person in an episode that you didn't really like. Here, I think you get to see it in a different way that's more fun.
And it works a lot better.
Yeah, it's so fun here, but you get to see also that a lot of the times that he gets to take over a personality, certain attributes from that persist with that character later on, and it's just really fun. So I really enjoy this episode. I think it's very, very fun. Because it's one of the most fun ones, it's a very high A tier. What?
Oh yeah.
Oh, I'm thinking about literally our next half.
Oh,
Like, what if I
it's a
had
very
to choose this S tier, what I would choose?
it's a very, very, very high A tier. There is just one that ranks above it for me in this 11. That's why I don't want to put it in S, because I'm gonna save that for the other one and
Oh
see
yeah.
if I can get that one an S. But
Definitely.
if we don't end up with an S at the end of this, then maybe we could just throw
Yeah,
Halloween up in
yeah.
there if we don't all agree on another
Yeah.
one. So yeah,
All
a
right.
very fun episode, and I love it.
Yep. All right. So Halloween goes in the A tier. Kerri, back to you for your next episode.
Oh, okay. Shoot. I'll go with this is a little difficult. I'll go with a difficult one though. I'll go with number 2. And that is Some Assembly Required. And this is the one where the two boys basically, isn't it like weird? Isn't that what they do in Weird Science?
No,
I haven't seen Weird Science.
more
so.
like Frankenstein.
Yeah, it's like Frankenstein. They're trying to build
Well, kind of. Yeah, it kind of is then in that way. You're right. Build a
Okay.
girl.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of like Weird Science meets Frankenstein in a way.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Only I wish this one had Robert Downey Jr. in it.
Oh.
I forgot Robert Downey Jr. was in Weird Science.
This is a little tough. I think I'm gonna go with B tier for this one. I think this is a pretty solid episode, but it's not one of my favorites in the season. There's some really I don't know, there's some good moments, like you kind of get to see Cordelia more, as a person with a heart. She does actually really, kind of care for Daryl in the situation. But I think on average, I don't know, it's just, I think there are so many great episodes in this season that this one falls a little bit behind. This is kind of more like a filler episode.
Mm-hmm. Chad?
Yeah, I definitely agree that this is more of a filler episode. Along the same lines as Reptile Boy for me. I enjoy watching every single episode of Buffy ever made. I don't care if people don't like it or whatever. I enjoy them all. But this one, sometimes is a little bit of a slog to get through when what the deal is. I think there are some interesting points when it's the high school guy that kind of lost everything and the mom that can't let go. There's a lot of sad stuff in here. There's some freaking relationship abuse and stuff, and it gets really dark at times. It's a really interesting episode, but I don't know, it's just kind of strange with all the body part stuff. Is just kind of off-putting a little bit some of the times. And so I honestly there's a lot to like in it, but I would put this in C, to be honest.
Oh wow.
Okay. Again, I'm pretty much in the same reign of putting this in B tier. It's not a terrible episode, but to be honest, there's not a lot of terrible episodes. There is one that I did not like out of these 11 personally. But this one, they did have some good details in this episode, as Chad brought up, the whole idea of the mother who can't let go, and she's constantly watching the football play.
You're back.
No, I'm good. The whole idea of a brother who wants to build pretty much a bride for his brother who he reincarnated, shows how much he cares about his brother then. And so the whole idea of family that connects, this whole episode I actually really liked. So to me, I wouldn't put it in C personally, but I definitely put it in a high B episode.
Nice. And the death kind of just destroyed their entire family.
Yeah.
Which is very sad. I think it's just enjoyability factor for me sometimes. But I understand a B rating.
All right, so we're on to Chad for his next episode.
All right. Well, I'm gonna throw my S tier out there just to see if it's gonna make it. Should I wait or should I do it now? All right, you're excited. All right.
I'm excited to see what
I'm gonna throw this one out there. I think this is absolutely one of the greatest episodes of television not just of early
Ooh.
season 2 Buffy. It's Lie to Me. I think Lie to Me is S tier for sure.
That's
Because
not where I expect you to go.
there in this 11, I think that is the best episode of the 11 because this guy comes back to to see Buffy. Turns out he knows who she is, what she is, and he wants to basically become a vampire, not just because he thinks it would be cool, but because he's dying. And just like the slow kind of reveal, like you go on through so many roller coaster where you're like, oh, cool, Buffy knows a friend from her past. There's something up with him though. Why'd he let that vampire go? And then like, oh, he's kind of a jerk. He's gonna like kill all these people just so he can become a vampire. And it's not gonna turn out the way you expect it to. And then the reveal that he's sick and dying, and that's why. And so it's just so many like great character stuff with him that you totally understand where he's coming from. He's not going about it the right way. He's not being smart. And Buffy even tells him that. She's like, you don't know what you're doing. You're going to die. And all of these people, you're going to get killed and all this stuff. These vampires, they don't play around. And it just really shows you, like, especially when the door shuts on that little bunker or whatever, the little vampire hangout. And then everybody in there is going to end up dead pretty much. Not everyone dies in there, but you think everyone might. And it just kind of shows how terrifying these vampires can actually be sometimes when they're like a little bit campy at times. But like, yeah, this one I think is excellent. And I love it.
Wow. Okay, so I'm going to start if you guys don't mind.
Sure.
I love this episode. I really, really do. I would put it at a high A tier. And only because I feel like they could have done a bit better job at giving the explanation instead of just being like, explained it and then just kind of brushed past it. The whole idea of like, he's dying of cancer, so he's doing this to live forever could be a great episode in its entirety. If we saw like maybe a diagnosis at the beginning and then the steps to get there, and then Buffy, kind of explains to him, yeah, you're doing, like, you have your reason for doing it, but it's not going the right way. If we saw more of like maybe his diagnosis at the beginning and then, cut to him coming back with his clan, and now you have a better understanding as to why he's doing it instead of just a throwaway line at the end. If that makes like any sense.
I mean, I understand your perspective, and I agree with your perspective. But I just think it just makes that moment stronger when you finally realize why. You're like, why would he do all this? Oh, but you took it a different way.
I mean, so I would say definitely one of the better episodes, but I'll probably put it in high A tier because I have another one that I feel like is like S worthy as well.
Ooh, okay.
Kerri?
Okay, I'm actually really surprised that we like agree on this, Chad, because this is also the one I was saving for S tier.
Wow.
Because there are quite a few really, really fantastic episodes in this first half of the season. I really wasn't sure if I was like fully prepared to propose this as my S tier and have no one agree with me.
No.
And this is one where I don't think I appreciated it. I don't know. Like when I was younger, yeah. I don't think I and we watched this series very young. Like Chad and I, we watched it like middle and high school.
Yeah.
So I think this is one that's like grown on me with age, especially like, I maybe just like coming to terms with your own mortality. But I also think for this one, that the ending dialogue between Buffy and Giles as they're sitting at the grave, waiting for her friend to rise.
Oh my God.
I think it is honestly one of the best scenes of television. Like
Lie
ever.
to me.
Yeah. And
Liar.
Liar.
Yeah. So, and I would say honestly that one scene alone is a lot of what propels me to put this at S tier, although I think the entire episode as a whole is just really fantastic. And we even get like, I think Chad, you had a good point where a lot of times we see Spike and he's kind of this lovable villain.
He is, yeah.
He's
And
ruthless
then
in this
there's this
episode.
one where he is legitimately, I think, pretty scary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go. This was the one I was gonna do S tier for, and I fully did not expect anyone to agree.
Well, high five.
Funny
then.
that you.
Okay. Again, great episode. So I'm definitely okay with that being an S tier.
Nice.
So Lie to Me is our only S tier for the episode. I believe it's back to me. Might as well just go ahead and tell you the one that I think is a S tier worthy, which is The Dark Age.
Oh, nice.
I love this episode so much because I like Giles as a character, but this is the episode that I ended up loving Giles as a character, because in season 1 you're like, okay, you know, he hasn't made a lot of mistakes. He's a watcher, so he's kind of high and mighty. This episode, you realize, oh no, he was young once, he was dumb once, and he made a ton of mistakes that are now coming back to haunt him and the person he's protecting in Buffy. So the whole idea of like, it adds more layers to you know, Giles as a character, but also it's just a fun episode. Like, what's his name? Ethan, I think it is, right?
Ethan Rain, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Ethan comes back, and you get to see like, oh, he wasn't just a one-off character. Okay, him and Giles have a history. The whole, you know, thing about that. Just, I love episodes that deal more in specific characters, and I think this one is one of the best examples of taking a character I liked, and I actually really liked, but making me really love a character because he does have flaws. He's not perfect, which I love. So yeah. Oh, by the way, I'm putting it in high A tier.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, I definitely agree with this on A tier. You know, this one is really interesting because I love what it does to Giles' character. Anytime they can take a character, flesh them out a little more, and show a little more of their like past or just like, you know, how they approach things. And like Giles, you think is just the stuffy librarian. Like, you know, you're like, I don't really know about him. He's just, you know, what does he know? You know what I mean? And turns out he had a past. And, you know, he did a lot of dumb things as a kid and, you know, messed with demons and all this stuff. But it's like also kind of the thing that you might expect a younger Giles to do in a way, but not. And then, yeah, so it's interesting, though, because a lot of people said that I don't know if they were thinking about doing this, but people had thought maybe this would be a good idea to do like a spin-off of young Giles and like just his, you know,
wow,
yeah, just so much of this stuff. I don't think that will ever happen now, but it still could because it's a young Giles. You can cast anybody as young Giles and just like, you know, have a great writer come in there, maybe have like Marty Noxon or, you know, somebody who knows like the Buffy lore front and back, just come in there and do it. That would be so cool. But spinoff aside, that probably won't happen. That's just, I agree with you about why this episode is so damn good because, you know, it takes a character that you thought was one thing, shows you a totally different side. And not only was he just a dumb kid, but he's like, when it comes to Ethan, because you thought he was, you know, nothing. When it comes to Ethan, he's like almost a bully to Ethan. But it makes sense because he's like, you know, Ethan is still doing the same shit. And he's like, that life is behind me.
Giles grew up.
Yeah, and Giles will like beat shit out of Ethan. And you're like, he's badass. He's freaking Ripper. It's amazing. I love him.
Kerri?
Yeah, that definitely A tier for me. This is one very similar to Halloween, where if it had wound up in S tier, I would not have been mad about it at all. It's hard. There's so many fantastic episodes this season. I think this is definitely one of the best. Yeah, just to have kind of the rug pulled out from under you as far as your perspective of Giles, like, and then just to see Giles kind of have to confront his past. It's obviously something that he's like ashamed of, and he like goes through a lot of the episode trying to hide it, even though he could probably get help from you know, Buffy and everyone. So him having to confront it, having to learn how to ask for help from, you know, the high schoolers that he's supposed to be mentoring. I think all of it is it's a fantastic episode.
And the demon Igon or whatever is pretty scary, especially when he takes over Jenny Calendar.
Yeah.
Oh my god,
dude! The ending of this episode hit me emotionally because it's the whole idea of like Jenny knows what Giles is doing, but this is the first episode that put her in danger.
Yeah.
And when he like tries to console her and she like backs away, I'm like, oh no, like I understand, but it also hurts because I like them as a couple. They're like the perfect amount of like nerdy, like cute couple. I'm just like, I understand, but when she like is kind of scared of Giles in this episode, I was like, oh no, like how is that going to work emotionally between both of them?
Yeah, they have a really good relationship, and it's one that you definitely want to see succeed because you want Giles to be happy.
Yes, you do. All right, on to Kerri for the next episode.
Okay, I'll go next in my own chronological order.
Let me guess. School Hard?
School Hard. The introduction of Spike, I think, as we have all said, one of, if not the favorite character for a lot of us. And I think that, like, so I would put this in A tier. I think this is a fantastic episode. I think the introduction of Spike and Drusilla is done perfectly. We just get these, you know, we're kind of starting off the season. We're waiting to see who the big bad is going to be. And we just get this like really nice kind of break in the monotony of Sunnydale and even in the vampire community in Sunnydale with Spike and Drusilla. And I just love this episode in general, the format of it where, you know, Buffy's trying to be a good student. Her mom is in the school and then everyone kind of gets grouped off in these weird pairings. Like you see Willow and Cordelia are just hiding in the janitor's closet.
Hilarious.
Yeah. And Principal Snyder's just like, oh, they're on PCP or something.
Principal Snyder's a dick.
And Buffy just takes control and she kind of, you know, her mother doesn't fully understand what's happening, but her mother kind of finally sees that she is actually a very responsible person and actually great in a crisis.
Exactly. Chad?
I agree with Kerri. You said A tier, correct?
I did
Obviously,
say A
because you
tier.
can't put it in S tier.
Yeah.
School Hard is fantastic. You know, I think as well as maybe Hunter, you know, Spike is definitely probably my favorite character of the show. And he continues to be that for however long he's in the show. I won't reveal that, but he is a fantastic character. I love James Marsters as an actor, and he comes in, and yeah, he's also very intimidating in this as well. But I also love kind of like you get to see him and Angel interact, and I love how this was one of my first like introductions to Buffy as well. After my first episode I ever watched, I remember watching this one, and I was like, I don't understand what's up with these characters. But I remember I didn't know like, you know, what Angel's deal was. I didn't know he was like, you know, the good vampire or whatever.
Yeah.
And then, but here he kind of has to act like he's not to end up being, you know, like he's on Spike's side and stuff like that. And I just thought that was really cool. I think David Boreanaz is really great in that role. But yeah, I also love that, you know, it's kind of Buffy trying to hide something from her mom. And you know, you just got like that coupled with, oh, now vampires are coming in, but you know, I guess people don't really know they're vampires. There's a lot of really fun stuff, like Kerri mentioned, a lot of them, and you know, yeah, it's just a really fun episode. This is the one, yeah, where he comes in and crashes into the Sunnydale sign?
Yeah,
it's amazing. I love that so much. So there's a lot of really great stuff, but yeah, I would definitely put it high A tier for School Hard.
Really? Again? Am I good?
Oh, you're back.
All right. So yeah, I definitely put this in A tier. A lot of fun in this episode, and what's great about it is, really, it mostly just takes place in the school, in one central location, instead of being like, you know, in different locations. You're really stuck, and it feels claustrophobic when all the vampires are starting to come in, almost like a zombie movie in a way. Or like, you know, it's just like kind of in one location and they're kind of just like blocking off the exits. But the pairings were really fun. Love the fact that Angel tried to use Xander as bait.
Yeah.
Grabbing him by the collar and everything. He was like, dude, you waited way too long to jump in and try to save me here. I love the interaction between Xander and Angel. And I love the fact that this anointed one kid just got instantly. Spike just came in and said, "You know what? I'm gonna put you in a cage," and then
there you go.
The sun.
I love that so much because like he's hyped up to be such a big character, like he's the master, like anointed him and stuff like that. And Spike's just like, "You're done.
No.
You're done."
And he goes out like a punk, which is hilarious. So yeah, I really love this episode, but also it deals with like secrets. And how secrets could come back to haunt you, especially in Buffy's case, with her mom being there. Principal Snyder being a dick like always. I do not like that character, man. I do not.
You will see another side of Snyder for a brief second later on, but yeah.
All right, so yes, School Hard is going into the A tier. All right, Chad, on to you.
All right, I'm gonna nominate one that I'm gonna put into B tier, and I'm not sure. I'm thinking maybe people might feel a little bit differently, maybe rank it a little lower in C, or maybe might agree. I'm not sure because I'm not sure what Kerri's least is, because if it's not Reptile Boy or Some Assembly Required, I think I might know what it is, but I actually somewhat like this one. It's Ted. And I'm putting
Ted. Okay.
Yeah, and I'm gonna put Ted in B tier. Only reason is because I don't think it's a great episode, but I really like John Ritter. I used to watch Three's Company all the time, and it was fun to see him pop up in this episode and just be in it. And you don't know what's up with him, but because like for the longest time, Buffy just has a mother, and then all of a sudden she starts to date, and then you're like, all right, well, this is probably going to get weird. This is Buffy. So what's up with this guy? And all of a sudden, he seems really nice. He's making cookies. People love him. And then all of a sudden things start to go south with just a quick insult at her.
The golf course line was, holy, she said, I'm going to smack you.
Yeah. And when she complains, to her mom, she thinks she's making it up because she wants to get him in trouble because she doesn't want him to be there, stuff like that. But then you slowly get to see who this guy is, and he gets so aggressive and insane. But you realize it's not a human being. He's a, spoiler alert, robot or cyborg or whatever. And he's an android. It's really interesting though how she goes to see a little bit of his life, where he's this data processor guy or something like that, and I think he's really good at it, but it turns out he's a robot that takes people, gets romantic with them and then kills them and stuff like that, and some dark room. And
as far as I remember, there was an original Ted, and then he created robots to keep bringing back a lost love. That's what Xander said at the end.
Oh, okay. I didn't remember that.
As far as I remember, I just watched the episode, so I should remember clearly.
Right, but so he gets in there and he kind of starts to try to marry people, and then he kills them, and it's. I just think it's really interesting because Buffy has to face a foe that she doesn't think is actually a monster at first. It turns out he is, but or a thing, not a man, but. Yeah, the way she handles it, you think that for a second, you think Buffy killed a man, and then you think something's gonna happen to her with the cops, and I don't know. I have a lot of fun with that one. So, Ted.
All right, Kerri.
This is hard because there are two in this first half of the season that I don't particularly like, and this is one of them. Okay. I'm trying to decide which I dislike more for C tier. I think I will say, and I think I had told Chad this initially, just on my first thought about this whole season, that this is definitely one of my least favorite episodes of Buffy. So I think I will put it in C tier. My actual least favorite episode of Buffy is in the second half of this season. So we'll look for that next time. But I think for this one, I'm gonna put this in C tier. I think that it's weird because I think there are some really great moments in this and some great concepts, but there are some things that just, I don't know, for some reason it just like turns me off. Like I think, you know, Joyce's like unwillingness to believe Buffy, who's her daughter, it just seems unrealistic. Like Buffy's not a little child. Like she's pretty grown up and pretty independent, and it seems like odd that Joyce wouldn't, believe her about this because I don't know. It's just like Buffy's not one to be like, oh, you have to be with my dad.
Yeah.
It doesn't really feel like they have much like connection for a
Yeah.
lot of it though. So I understand how she might be kind of like divorced from Buffy a lot and not really understand Buffy. So,
and I'm trying to remember, maybe you'll remember Hunter. Maybe part of it, maybe they do give kind of an explanation, like maybe he like drugs the cookies.
They actually do, yeah.
Okay,
so,
yeah.
So they were saying that the cookies and the snacks that Ted's always making have some sort of chemical that releases like dopamine overload into the sensory.
That's right.
Yeah.
And here's why when Xander is eating the, at first in the episode, he's like complaining like, oh, fuck that Ted. And then he eats the cookies that he has. He's like, oh, he's awesome. Yeah. So the whole idea of like he's drugging them to kind of keep them almost like puppets in a way under his control.
Yeah.
I will say probably this is kind of a spoiler for next time, but I think one of the things that actually makes me dislike this episode is because when I was younger and watching Buffy, I didn't have like the box sets. There was no streaming at that point. I used to watch them on FX and they would come in episode pairs. So you would watch one at like 4 o'clock and one at 5 o'clock. This was always paired with my least favorite episode.
Oh no.
Don't say what it is.
I won't say what it is.
Oh no.
I mean, you can probably guess from placement, but I will say that might be factoring into my thinking a little bit on this one. So
interesting. It also does get a little too real sometimes, but
Yeah. All right, so it's on to me. So Chad said B, Kerri said C.
Correct.
I'm gonna go with a B. Again, it could just be that I just watched this episode, but I actually like the idea of like Buffy having to deal with her mom dating again, and the jealousy that can come with that, and then the whole idea of like, is he, this two-faced, character who just kind of like, will be nice to someone and then be rude to somebody else behind their back, or is there something more sinister behind it? So I actually really liked the idea of like Buffy having to deal with her mom dating again, and how like he kind of acts differently towards Buffy than he does against the mom or Xander or Willow or anything like that. It's kind of different. All right, so I'll put that.
Well, let me. So I'm sorry. Let me add in there. I do really also. I just remembered. I love the scene when she comes up. He's like sitting in a chair in her room or whatever, and then it turns out
it's so creepy.
He went through all of her things, found her Slayer stuff, and then like she just like basically kicks his ass. I love that when she starts beating the shit out.
That's great. And I have to say, I don't mind this in B tier. There is another one I was like kind of like thinking of putting in C tier instead. So we'll see if that actually gets it.
Also, rest in peace, John Ritter.
Yeah. He is really fantastic in that. It's kind of like a good little twist that he's the villain of the episode.
All right, it's on to me, I believe. Yep. I'm gonna go.
Keeping us in suspense. Okay.
You're back.
The suspension. What it's gonna be? The suspense is killing me. I'm gonna go with my least favorite episode of at least this half a season. episode 4, Inca Mummy Girl. The reason I don't hate this episode. I don't hate any episode. This one felt more disappointing because they didn't tie in with anything that was going on in the previous episodes or episodes later on in, the 11 episodes or whatever. It's not like Halloween where, Ethan comes back in the next episode or the next few episodes and it kind of ties that in. Or even the filler episodes that really deal with something that Buffy's going to use later on. This just felt like a filler episode that was just kind of there, and it was kind of hard for me to get through just because I didn't really care what happened in this episode. So I'm gonna put this in the C tier, guys.
Yeah, this is exactly the other one I was thinking of putting in the C tier, and I almost did. So I 100% agree. C tier. If we're gonna put one from this first half of the season, and definitely this one for me. There are some great moments. Like, I think it's really cute when like Xander's teaching her how to put the whole Twinkie in his mouth. And it's kind of sad because we do get some really great Xander moments in this episode and some things where, you kind of get to see some aspects of Xander we don't normally see. He's like, a lot of times he's like kind of just like the, kind of the one making jokes. And this one, he's kind of, building a relationship. There are just, I think, like you said, Hunter, like a lot of this episode, it drags a little bit. It's not connected to anything else much within the season. And I think also, I don't know, to me, it just kind of like, especially now, kind of as an adult and now kind of being more aware of representation issues. This is, I think, the first episode of Buffy that has even a minor character of color, and she's the villain in the episode.
Yeah.
She's kind of a sympathetic villain, and, they can't really find a solution to save her or help her. They wind up just basically, I think, either killing her or re-imprisoning her. Like, it's not a good situation. So, yeah, I think of this first half of the season, I agree that this is C tier.
Chad?
I'd put this one in B tier. I do agree with a lot of what you guys say. I think there's some moments that, like this kind of drags a little bit. I was about to, if you weren't going to say that she's at least a sympathetic villain, that I was going to jump on that because she definitely is. And you feel like bad for her, I think, because you're like, I get why you want to like live, but look at what you're doing to everybody, and it's terrible. But this episode, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, is I love some of the moments in this. It's like this is the introduction of Oz.
Yeah.
And you get to see him see Willow for the first time,
and
he sees her as an Eskimo, and he's like, who's that girl? And then it's like, who that was? Like, no, the Eskimo. And she's just sitting there all cute in her little Eskimo costume. And it's just like stuff like that, but also like continuing the theme that you're going to keep saying of Xander kind of being a, demon magnet or like a monster.
The dude has the worst luck when it comes to new girlfriends.
Yep. Yeah. And I mean, I agree with you guys, but I also would put it slightly higher just because of like Oz, Eskimo Willow.
Fair enough. I would say like another one that kind of like
and Jonathan too, I think is introduced in this, right?
Oh,
I think so.
I think so. Yes. I think he's in this.
Is
yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So like again, I was wrong that they don't continue everything from this episode, but it just feels like they could have incorporated a lot more like later on. So yeah. All right, so we have our 1 for C, 1 for S. We have 2 episodes remaining. Kerri, on to you.
Okay, well, we've got 2 episodes remaining, and it's a double feature.
It's a two-parter.
Two-parter. I'll go with part 1. This is What's My Line, part 1. I'll say for this one, I think maybe a high B. Although I wouldn't be unhappy with A either. But I think personally for me, this is a high B. This is really an episode setting up the next episode, I think. And there's a lot of cool things, but they don't really pay off until the second part of this two-parter. So that's just a little bit why it's just a little bit lower for me.
Okay.
This is part one. Okay.
Part one.
Yeah. So I'm gonna go with my take. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, you can go ahead. You can go ahead.
So I probably put this in a higher A, just because I like the theme of Career Week in this episode, and how Buffy is like, well, I can't do this because my career, my destiny is already, my future is already set. Like I don't have the chance to be a police officer or whatever. Like I have to be a Slayer. Like that was anointed to me, instead of her being able to choose what her career is. So I like the idea of like, it's a setup episode, yes, and part two it's fantastic, but the whole idea of like Buffy having to deal with pretty much not having a choice at what her career is, or what her job is going to be, or what her life is going to be. And that kind of ties in to episode 2, where we learn more about spoilers. At the end of this episode, we learn about the second Slayer, and we learn about maybe she's going to let her, Kendra take over and be the new Slayer, so she could actually have a life. So I think they actually work well together. So I put this one in high A.
Yeah, that's I agree. You said B.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with that. Like it's weird because this does feel like one episode that's just like split into two. But yeah, so I probably, if I have to rank both of them, I would probably rank 2 over 1, because I do think it's more exciting. Where we'll talk about 2 after this, but like the first one, yeah, it's a setup one. I like everything that Hunter said about like her trying to figure out a career, like life after Slayer. Like that's not really a thing that you normally think about. They actually get to stuff like that later in the series too. But like here, she's starting to like think about like, is there a life for me? I thought this was this whole Slayer gig. And then it's really fun. I think mostly at the end too. Yeah, when Kendra finally shows up, and then you just get like, I'm Kendra the Vampire Slayer. Like what? Like, But yeah, so I would say high B, low A.
So which are you picking then?
Oh yeah, good point. What am I picking? Throw in A. Why not?
Okay.
All right. So, What's My Line? Part 1 goes in the A tier. And now our final episode we're going to rank for this week, What's My Line? Part 2, episode 10. Chad, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, just like I was saying, this one's definitely just more climactic, because you have all the setup. You are introduced to Kendra, but you get to learn more about her, about how, like, she's different than Buffy, because, she's not even allowed to, like, talk to boys. Xander talks to her, and she just bows her head and stuff. So you feel like, okay, well, her Slayer's really weird and strict, and, like, kind of like a different culture, I guess.
Yeah.
And, but you get to also see, because she seems super like adept at like a lot of things. She has a lot of like positives, but then you see that like just how strict her Slayer or her Watcher is, that she doesn't have all of the social skills, doesn't have all of the things that Buffy does, because it's not just like her power as a Slayer. It's one of her biggest strengths is her friends, and her ability to, work with them and allow them to help her a lot of the times, because one Slayer can't do it alone. And so I love a lot of those moments in there, and it's really fun. The don't you get in this the Xander Cordelia thing?
Mm-hmm.
The reveal. Okay, good. All right,
Yeah.
so that reveal happens, and it's really fun and interesting. And you're like, what?
Yeah. So that was what, part 1 or part 2, where they kissed in the house? I think that's part 1, isn't it?
Is the bug guy in part 1 or 2?
Yeah. Well,
I just like he's in both. It's hard to
he's in both.
remember where part 1 stops and where
Exactly,
part 2
yeah.
begins.
Yeah.
Either
I
way.
know.
What?
I said I know that they kiss at the end of this episode as well.
Okay.
I think it, okay. If Wikipedia is correct, it's not until part 2 that
Okay.
they actually kiss.
And that's just such a fun moment. And I love because you think it comes out of nowhere, but they had slowly been kind of building that up.
Bickering back and forth.
Because they're like so like anti each other all the time, and you're like, why do they
Opposite attract, I
hate each
guess.
other so much? But they're like always spending kind of time together, like especially in Halloween and stuff like that, and just insulting each other, and then like you're like, all right, that makes perfect sense actually.
Yeah.
And it's kind of great. So yeah, I would put it in A, a little bit higher than part 1, I think.
Kerri?
Yeah, I would definitely put this in A.
And this is where Buffy gets Mr. Pointy?
Yes. Yeah.
I'm sorry?
Wait,
Mr.
no, maybe no, it might be later.
That might be later. That might be a spoiler. It's okay.
I didn't hear anything, so you're good.
I'm not sure. I just can't remember.
I think she gave that to her before she left, but I'm not sure. Just someone talk, and then I'll look this up.
Okay, well, I would say A for this one. I don't know. There's a lot of great moments. I think, like you guys have said, you get Xander and Cordelia getting together. You kind of get a interaction between. I think this is the first time you see Angel, Spike, and Drusilla all interacting with each other.
Yeah, that was a great scene.
Yeah, true.
Also, a very interesting dynamic because even when Angel's being tortured, he's still fucking ripping into Spike. Like,
yeah. And it's cool to see like a really strong, vibrant Drusilla.
Yeah.
She's terrifying too. Yeah.
It's very fun to see Drusilla at the end, kind of back at her full power, and it makes me excited for the rest of the season to see what damage she's gonna do.
I'm very excited for that. I actually like the kind of reverse portrait. It's like at the beginning of the season, it's Spike who's carrying her around because she's so weak, and in this one, when Buffy just knocks his, which is so badass. Like she throws like a necklace or like stone or something. It just knocks over an entire like piano set, but it's now her that's carrying Spike, which I actually like the whole idea of like now it's kind of like the opposite effect. It's like Spike is kind of weaker and she's getting stronger.
Yeah.
Cool. So like how will Spike handle that? Because to me, he seems like someone who wants to be the alpha male in a group.
Doing that for this
so when seeing like how that role will change affect him later on, which I actually like.
Yeah.
All right, guys, that is our tier ranking. So we have S tier, Lie to Me, and then we have our C tier, Inca Mummy Girl. In the A tier, we have When She Was Bad, Halloween, The Dark Age, School Hard, and What's My Line Part 1 and Part 2. And in the B tier, we have Reptile Boy, Some Is Simply Required, and Ted.
Nice. That's a good ranking.
Solid, yeah.
Yep. All right, guys. So next week, we will do this exact same thing for Part 2. So it'll be 12 to 22. And then we will rank all the episodes 22 to 1. So it might be a longer episode next week. But I'm super excited to get through the season. I just hate that there are so many episodes.
It's one of those things where with Buffy and a lot of these shows, even Supernatural that came a little later, still had that kind of formula, like the 22, 23 episode seasons, and it works for like a Monster of the Week type of format, and some other like police procedurals. It works like with that because they have to have their specific episodes for different things and stuff.
Yeah.
But we've seen with the new age of like television that the best seasons are like 8 to 13, something like that.
Exactly. I don't know why they feel like they have to do like 23 episodes, because after a while you're going to get like 3 or 4 episodes that just don't add up to anything.
Yeah, it's also just like the kind of the serialized like syndication television.
Yeah.
Just like people like to see it like every week, a new episode of Buffy.
It was definitely just how TV used to work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now with streaming, it's just different because you have like the binge
Yeah.
models, and then somewhat you're getting a little bit of the week to week experience, but way less so.
Mostly with Disney Plus.
Yeah.
Mhm.
All right, guys. So next week is going to be part 2 of this tier ranking, and then our full ranking. Chad and Kerri, where can people find you online?
If you want to see pictures of my cats, on Instagram at Kerri Elizabeth 17.
Yeah, we actually also are in on my buddy's channel, the Dill
That's
Pickle
right, yeah.
Movie Network. We are both in a MCU only, so far just MCU, not Marvel expanded yet, but MCU trivia league, and it's very very fun. They write like really great questions. A lot of really cool people over there. Kerri had a match against Noah McCausland, which was really fun. We won't spoil that, but go check that out because it's a really, really fun match. And then we also had Malcolm Lay and Brian Nussbaum face off against each other in that as well. And then I am later this month going to be playing my buddy Stacy Morris. So that should be really fun. I'm studying up, but also on that channel, I do a show with Dylan, called Picture This, where we go through every month. We go through a year of Oscars, the best pictures. We watch all of them. We talk about them. We rank them, and then we talk about actors, actresses, the year itself, the Oscar ceremony, all things those movies. And we have a lot of fun doing it. This month we are doing. Last month we did 1998. This one we're doing 2012, kind of a retrospective because it's 10 years later, 2022 to 2012. So I'm really looking forward to it. We watched Argo already. That was interesting. So looking forward to rewatch a lot of these.
What movie won in 2012? It was Argo, right?
Argo, yep.
Yeah.
And and there's that. I do movie battlegrounds, debating. I love doing that. I love doing a lot of other things, trivia. I have some horror stuff that I'm going to be doing with Hunter. In fact, we just had a match together, me and Kerri. That was really fun. That was a neck.
That'll be out this month.
So that was really fun. And that's pretty much, well, Letterboxd, Twitter, whatever, Shadow Web. Thank you, Hunter.
All right. So if you guys did enjoy this episode, hit the like button, subscribe to Nerd Entertainment Network down below. Thank you guys for watching. See you